everyone. This is Linda, and you are so welcome here at Icky Chic Designs. Today, I'm talking about how to get started with vision stitching, which is slow stitching with a purpose and destination in mind. It's designing your pieces ahead of time, perhaps, or as you go intuitively. You can do that too, but you always have a destination and purpose in mind, and so it takes design to get there. It's not just stitching in the moment, it's stitching with a purpose. And so it's blending your slow stitching skills with your designing skills. That's pretty much what vision stitching is. I wanted to give you some different examples of slow stitching and vision stitching, in my opinion. Now remember, I'm just one of many artisans here on YouTube. We all have our own way. But the wonderful thing about that is that you, as you visit these different channels, can learn from each one, take what you can use, and then make it your own and develop your own style for how you want to hand stitch. Vision stitching is just hand sewing in all its different forms and elements or styles. It's also embroidery in all its styles. Whatever you want to incorporate is in this vision stitching. Now for some simple slow stitch pieces, let me bring you down here and so you can see. This I would call a slow stitch piece because I sat down, I had no destination. I don't have a particular purpose or use for this at the time. I just was playing with scraps and just relaxing and enjoying myself in the moment, just making a little 5x5 or 4x4, whatever it is here, design, as you can see that, and basically just simple stitching. The next piece is the same thing. I just already had a heart, so I thought I'm just going to stitch it on a pretty piece of fabric. So I collaged a couple of fabrics on the back and stitched the heart. No particular destination, just enjoying stitching in the moment. Same way with this piece, using scraps, just developing something. If you've been to my channel, you know that I'm always making things that I just put in a drawer because at the time I don't have a destination. So my little slow stitching pieces go in a drawer. But later they'll get put into a vision stitching project where I do have a destination and I very definitely know what I want to do with that. Another slow stitching piece, just using scraps. Wanted to make, in this one I had a design in mind. I wanted to make a little bit of a landscape look. So this is kind of between slow stitch and vision stitch because I definitely had a design and I had a halfway destination in mind for this, but not complete. So I just created in the moment, okay? Another one that was created in the moment with no particular design, just using some sheer fabrics that I had and playing with those. Now we switch to what I call my vision stitching pieces. I had a theme in mind, was nautical. I have a destination. This is going to be a little wall hanging. And so I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I wanted to put stitching on here that kind of simulated what you might see if you look through fishing net out to the scene on the water. And I think that's pretty cool. I'm not finished with this yet, but it does have that appearance that you're looking through the fishing nets that are drying on the beach out to the sailboat on the water. And so this is a vision stitching project. I designed it with a destination in mind, something particular I wanted to do. The stitching is very purposeful. It's not just in the moment. I'm doing what I want to do in order to get the look I want. And so there's a difference. in slow stitching and vision stitching for me. Here is another piece. This is the latest piece I did in my 50 different slow stitch styles, showing all the different feelings and moods that we can get by just changing pattern, color, and texture and things like that. I definitely had a design in mind. I'm using the same design for all 50 examples. I have a destination in mind in that I want to demonstrate a mood, a feeling, a style. So everything is not just in the moment, it's well planned out for what I want to do. Everything is chosen for a particular reason. Nothing is just intuitively chosen. Okay? So again, a vision stitching project. Another vision stitching project. I wanted to do a very earthy, natural feeling piece that I could put in my large slow stitch book that I'm doing. And so I wanted to use lots of texture and just emulate, a little vignette in the woods, you might say, with textiles. And I really love this piece because it does invoke that for me. But again, I had a very definite design. I chose my elements very definitely. I had a definite destination in mind. For me, this is a vision stitching project. It's all hand stitched. So for some people, hand stitching just is synonymous with slow stitching. But slow stitching really does have that connotation that you are simply stitching in the moment to be stitching. You are in meditative mode, you are in relaxation mode. You don't really have a destination in mind, particularly. You might have a sketchy one, but it's all about just sitting down and doing that handwork. Okay? So the difference to me, as I said earlier, is that taking slow stitching to the next step where you mix your hand stitching, sewing, embroidering with definite design elements that you're doing steps it up to vision stitching in my mind. So those are the examples. Now, how do you get inspired? To do vision stitching, you have to have a destination in mind. And that destination is what is going to be the catalyst for your inspiration. My destination here is to incorporate it in my large stitching book. I wanted a raw elements type, a nature type piece. That was my design thought. Again, design. I had to pick a piece. This is called farmhouse. That would invoke a very simple, minimalistic style with fabrics and color choices that would emulate that would be appropriate hanging in a style in a farmhouse. So you're getting inspired for vision stitching is all about your destination. And so you go there. Now to find your style, I work with scraps. And as you can see, that is what I work with mostly. And when I'm working, even in my slow stitch pieces, I am very scrappy with that as well. Okay, so you find your style. Now this is a particular, being a particular project, this is not scrappy as such. This is particularly chosen. And I had to have a piece big enough for the background. I wanted certain kinds of threads and with a sheen to it. So it's not scrappy, but basically overall, I am very scrappy with my pieces. Now here's a little vision piece that I did. with scraps, but very much with a destination. This is going to be the cover of a book, a little book, and this one the same way, okay? But very much scrappy, just bits and pieces of fabrics that I have at hand, okay? So you want to be sure that you keep all of your scraps and textile pieces and threads and embellishments and buttons and beads and anything and everything, because whether you're slow stitching or vision stitching, you're going to need lots of these elements. You don't need a whole lot of any one thing to do either one of these projects, because normally they are hand projects, lap work, they're small. And even when you make bigger projects, you're usually making small elements that you combine together for a bigger project. So you need lots of different kinds of things to work with. Let's see. I make all kinds of little stuff here. I make snippets. I make clusters. I make hearts. I make all kinds of things. I make my own beads. I do things that in advance, so when I just want to be messing around, nothing big, not working on a particular project, I make lots of little stuff that I will use, but it takes it takes scraps to do this, okay? So you can't just start sewing like this if you don't have something to work with. For instance, this little sequin things here and beads were cut off of a denim jacket, okay? And so I'll use those. These fringe were cut off of something I don't even remember, but I'll use this later on. This was a little motif cut out of a blouse, I remember, and I'll use that at some point. So you use everything, okay? So start making your collection, because the bigger your collection, the more design conscious you can be. Okay, what threads and fabrics to use? Since I am so scrappy, I use everything. Whatever hits me at the time, whatever I want to use. I have a bucket here of all kinds of little decorative threads. It's just full. I have another bucket of, let's see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, here it is. Of little bitty pieces of fabrics. I mean, just crumbs there. I have a bucket of loose threads that I keep, that I use for that. It's just, I have tons of scraps around me of every kind of textile. And I have buttons and beads and all kinds of things in little drawers in front of me. I have all these things because for me, I have to see it. Seeing it pops the inspiration in my mind. I can think, oh, I need texture. But if I can't see something that adds texture or pizzazz or element, like I have little scraps here. This was used on a recent 50s slow stitch style piece here, this little piece. I have this piece of scrap here, which comes from this. I love the texture. That's going to play in something else too. It's a scrap. Here's a scrap piece of gauze. It's all sitting here in little buckets in front of me so that I can see it. And from time to time, I will dump that bucket and refill it with different scraps so that I constantly have new things to draw from. I don't dump it in a sense I throw it away. I dump it in another box and then I start pulling. And in other words, I'm always rotating my scraps like that. Well, what do you make with these things? It's unending what you can do with these things. Lots and lots of home decor, tons of it. Pillow fronts, wall hangings, tea towel embellishments, guest towel embellishments, t-shirt embellishments, sweatshirt embellishments, gift bag embellishments, junk journal book covers, needle case cover. It just goes on and on and on. The things you can make with what you make with both your slow stitching and your vision stitching pieces. Now, how do you begin? You begin with a blank piece of fabric. Normally, I'll have a piece of batting. I like something substantial behind my pieces that gives it, some feel to it, some strength to it, and it also allows me to hand sew through it easily. So normally I will just start with a piece of batting and a piece of fabric of some kind. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Like this has the brown fabric. This was a piece of collaged fabric. The back of this is actually a woven scarf with the variegated colors. These were scraps of shears and different fabrics. This is a collage of different cotton fabrics, okay? So you start with anything that you want to sew on. Now, if you're slow stitching, it really doesn't matter. But if you're vision stitching, then you've got to choose carefully what your background is and what elements you're going to be putting on it, okay? Because you're stitching to a destination, remember. And so it does matter how you begin, all right? Then you start laying your pieces. If you have a design, for instance, in this one, I had a design which I penciled in, and then I stitched it accordingly and worked that design. In this one, I did not have a particular design, but I knew the look I wanted, and I wanted to be extremely textural. So I used lots of different texture pieces in it like that. Let me bring you back down. I think you'd do better that way. And so it's just you grabbing and pulling whatever is working with your design and your destination in vision stitching here. So that's how you start. Now, even though I have a vision and a destination, I do intuitively stitch throughout my project. For instance, when I was doing this one very planned out, the intuitiveness came into basically, what are my centers of my flowers? What am I going to do? I didn't have that planned out. So I just used 3 different styles here and made that happen, okay? Everything else was planned because it's stitched according to a pattern. Here, nothing was stitched according to a pattern. I simply started laying out and creating and designing that way. So that's how you would begin and design and then go along your journey. I hope this makes sense to you and that you can begin your vision stitching journey too. If you're already a slow stitcher, that's great. If you're already a slow stitcher who's designing with a destination in mind, you're already doing, in my vision stitching. You're incorporating both. But whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to do, just do your thing, because that's what's going to make you happy. But it's really easy to do both. When you really go from just plain slow stitching to vision stitching, you really become your own designer. And I think windows and doors open up for you because you start thinking like a designer and you start taking things further and you start building your skills a little more and a little more. And so that's the thing I like about vision stitching. It allows me to go through all those doors and windows I don't just have to stay in a particular mode for it to, just intuitively stitching for the sake of stitching, just being in the moment. If I did that, I would never get anything done, in the sense that, I have an Etsy shop that I support, this YouTube channel where I try to pass on some of my skills and knowledge that I've learned over time, share them with people. I have to be a vision stitcher to do those things. And so that's kind of what I want to open up a door for you, that you might also think about it that way. Combine them both, do them both. And whatever you want to call it, that's fine. Whatever you're comfortable with, that's fine. You don't have to change anything. Just be yourself and grow in your stitching. I am doing a series called 50 Styles of Slow Stitching. And you'll find that I use the term slow stitching in most of my videos because that is what most people connect with. They understand the term slow stitching, even though it is broadly used in all kinds of applications. But that's why I use this term slow stitching more than vision stitching. But you might want to follow along with that, because that is definitely a series that I'm putting together for design purposes. How do we design toward a mood, a destination? How do we use color, texture, fabrics, and so forth to bring that mood forward? How do we make something look like it belongs in a jungle themed decor or in a farmhouse decor? How do we change the same design to get those two different looks? I'm going to try to change these designs 50 times to show you how I work my way toward those different styles and moods. So I hope you'll catch that. There's a playlist for that, and so it makes it easy. I think I've done 6 pieces, and so we're basically just getting started. Okay. Also, my large stitchery book, I am closing the actual pages out. I'll be done with my pages in August. I'm going to be done a little early, I think. If not, I still have September, because in October I'm going to switch over and make my cover. So if you haven't looked at that, that's also on a playlist, and you might get a lot of inspiration out of just looking at the different styles and pages I'm putting in that book. So there's a lot to see here at Icky Chic Designs. There's a lot of playlists that you might want to go through. The playlist, The Power of Scraps to Transform, I think there are over 70 videos in that, and it's amazing. Everything's made with scraps, and there's so many different things to play with there. So I really appreciate you being here. I would appreciate if you find value here, if you would subscribe and also share my videos so that my channel can grow and other stitchers can join us. Till then, please stay very destination oriented and learn to design your slow stitching pieces to the next level. Everyone, please stay scrap happy.